Well, I'll tell you, the data is in, and Wednesday is one of the highest occupied office days. And this was never more real for me than on my commute from North County, San Diego this morning. People on the road today. So, yeah. Thank you for joining us. You're in for a real treat with Erin here. Erin comes to the conversation with just a breadth and wealth of experience and education around the subject matter. And I think when we walk away from sessions like this, we're often walking away pondering like big thoughts. And one of the things that Erin is going to do is kind of bring it down to earth for us today and enable a lot of us to walk out of here with some real tactical things that we can implement when you go back into your roles and your functions on an everyday basis. So thank you for being here with us, Erin.
Yeah, I am here. We're good. I'm happy to be here. She's right. Wednesday is the busiest day for community.
She has the data too.
Sure do.
She also traveled here with her little Italian Greyhound, and I really wanted her to let us bring her up on stage today. But
she can sleep in the hotel room. She'll be right.
I didn't win that argument. So clearly, Erin, being responsible for your Flexible Spaces program and working for an organization that is pretty unique compared to typical corporate workplace office occupiers, I thought it might be good to start today's session just talking a little bit about culturally what that's like for you managing this program within your organization, and what were some of the issues that you were experiencing that led you to need spatial intelligence to make some decisions.
Thank you. So I run our flexible use space program at OHSU, which didn't exist before COVID. And as many of you, COVID hit, we were quite surprised by it all. And then everyone left. Everyone went home that wasn't hands on the patients. You were hands on the patients, you stayed, very little changed about your workplace kind of dynamics. But everyone else, we had to get them away from each other and away from the patients was really our top priority at the time. So we dispersed everyone and they all, kind of went home, all of our administrative staff, all of our central services, IT, finance, all of those folks who we were pretty sure they could do their work remotely. We said, let's go do that. And at the very beginning, it was a 2-week rolling evaluation period. So, and not to retell COVID stories, I'm sure that we've all had a million times over the past couple of years, but we dispersed everyone and we said, 2 weeks, we're gonna check in 2 weeks, because it might be over in 2 weeks. Might be over, and then everyone can come back. And then we had another 2-week check-in, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks. And then finally, around the 3 or 4 month mark, we were like, okay, we need to kind of really put some systems in place we're gonna be doing this for a while, it looks like. And so we did. And one of those things was we started the conversation about how we were gonna use all of these recently vacated office spaces. We knew that we didn't want to enable everyone to just come back into a new normal, because we are trying to grow programs at 25% growth over the next few years, and we were not going to have room for office staff and also grow our clinical programs. So we had to find a way to reduce our footprint for office staff while continuing to add space for clinical stuff. So we were like, we're going to have a flexible use space program. And what is that? What does it mean? We didn't really know at the time. And so we had Archibus was our current kind of floor plan management software. And Archibus has a space booking module that you can buy, and we kind of bought it and we rolled it out. And almost immediately, a shocker, human nature, people weren't using it. I mean, people would just show up in new spaces, which at the time, we didn't really know much about COVID. We didn't know about transmission. We were still all like hosing down our groceries in the driveway. And so we were really trying to be careful about surface contamination. And how did we know which spaces had been used each day? We had to have an occupancy sensor. We had to have some sort of non-interventional indicator of what spaces had been used that day so that we could make sure they were clean and safe for the next employee. So we got occupancy sensors, and one of the reasons that we chose the platform that we did is because a lot of them feel very big brothery. We're from Portland, Oregon. There's definitely the political climate is such that we did not want to make our employees feel watched or monitored, or like their bosses were going to know exactly when they were sitting at their desks. So we were able to roll it up to kind of a building level report out, but That is why we chose kind of to add spatial intelligence and monitoring occupancy sensors to our kind of overall flexible space program.
Yeah, well, I think we've seen several use cases for sensor-enabled decision-making, and the validity of that. I think informing janitorial services to stop viral spread was certainly a unique use case that came out of COVID. But there are others that are also, on the other side of this. We have a lot of workplace planners and advisors and strategists saying, when the workforce comes back into the office to work, they're performing work quite differently than they did before the pandemic. They're interacting with their space quite differently than they did before the pandemic. And it kind of runs the gamut, right? So what did you learn about the new ways to use the data coming out of the Foresight platform to inform decisions for OHSU?
We've gotten a number of expected and unexpected wins from the data. The expected wins were we were able to understand what types of work people wanted to do when they came to the office. We were able to see specifically, we deployed occupancy sensors across 4 or 5 different locations of space. So we were able to see the balance of who's using cubicles. No one likes cubicles, by the way. So who was using them? Not very many people. Who was using the kind of private work areas where they could close the door and get some focus time in? That's been our top booked and top used work type from the beginning and remains extremely popular. Conference tables, we were able to see kind of the use of collaboration spaces. We have kind of a unique setup at OHSU because we have 20,000 employees, and chances are low that multiple members of a work group were all coming in to use flexible space at the same time. So we found out that we really didn't need a ton of collaboration space because all of the members of a collaborative team weren't even on campus. And so we're trying to figure out now how to add more collaboration tools through technology and how to kind of better balance the all or nothing kind of collaboration because we have so many work groups who are not ever going to come back full time.
I think that's interesting. I think, we're often asked, well, what are all of your customers doing? And when we aggregate the data across all of our customers' ecosystems, the one thing that percolates to the top is that they're all so dramatically unique, right? And because there are, anecdotally, other companies that say none of the focused area space is ever used, right? So again, it's just another reason that your unique workforce is going to work in unique ways in your unique office. And to be able to measure that and understand intelligently what you need to turn the dial up on or down on is critically important to make sure you're optimizing that.
It really is, because it is the prevailing kind of conversation, which we've seen today even, is that the collaboration is really key. You really have to really prioritize that. But that didn't hold true for what we were seeing for our employees. They really, really wanted that kind of private space that they could get their focus work done. And so had we not had the data to show what types of work areas were being used, we would have spent a whole lot of money creating spaces that then would likely not get used.
Well, tell us a little bit more about some of the other use cases. You said there's a lot of different things that you got out of it.
So certainly the being able to answer the question for really any department that says, I don't really understand the usage for room X. I don't really understand, most of our leaders are not on campus, so they're not walking around seeing people with their own eyes. So they don't have a good barometer to understand what's happening in their own spaces. And so, for example, we're in a design phase for redoing a whole floor of one of our buildings. And one of our designers kind of postulated, well, I think we can get rid of this break room. Most of the people that used it have dispersed. We really don't think it's getting used. I think we should go ahead and get rid of it. And we said, hang on, let's confirm that. Let's find out exactly what the usage is of this room. And so we tossed a couple of occupancy sensors in there because they're really easy to move, which is great. And within a week, we had data that showed actually, yes, that room is getting used quite frequently in the morning, and then again at lunchtime, and then again at swing shift. And so we preserved that room because we were able to answer that question specifically, which we hadn't been able to before.